I can't believe it has been an entire decade since I last made my top tech of the decade video, but here we are again. Now, there were some comments on the last video, some concerns, and this is what I believe is the top tech of this decade. And it wasn't necessarily invented in this decade. Some of it existed last decade, but it became very popular and very mainstream this decade, at least in this area. For you, it may be different, but this is my list. So, let's get started. The first item on my list is 3D printers. 3D printers are a fantastic invention that have been used to replicate hard-to-find parts. If you don't want to go out and spend a buku amount of money on something, you could just 3D print it in the comfort of your own home. Prices have come way, way down over the course of the decade, and their capabilities have just went up and up. You can 3D print some really, really crazy stuff now, and there are even bars dedicated to prototyping and making things that have installed a ton of 3D printers so you can enjoy a drink with buddies while you're waiting for your magnificent creation to be printed out. It's a pretty cool thing, and while I don't have one personally yet, it's coming, I swear. I still think that they are a super cool invention and definitely one of the top tech of this decade. Next couple of things actually go hand in hand with each other. At the very beginning of the decade, Steve Jobs, before he passed away, revealed one of the best inventions to come out of Apple. That is the iPad. The tablet game was strong. The iPad still remains to this day one of the best tablets on the market. However, tablets, especially the iPad, were everywhere, and everybody wanted a piece of the game. And that proved to be a little bit of a problem, because everyone tried to copy the success of the iPad, but at a much lower price point. So we ended up with really cheap tablets that were a fraction of the cost of the iPad, but also were a fraction of the performance. That's the big problem with these. Amazon got a hold of the tablet market by modifying Android to create their Kindle tablets, which are still very popular to this day, but they are low-cost, cheap options and don't perform anywhere close to an iPad. Well, a bunch of low-quality, cheap Chinese tablets flooded the market, and unless you were Amazon with the power behind it, even Google doesn't make tablets anymore, where they used to make the Nexus series, which I did have one for a period of time until it just started to go downhill in functionality. They didn't update it anymore, it got really slow, and it put a bad taste in people's mouth for Android and cheap tablets in general. So Google decided to go a different direction. And that's my next item, the Chromebook. Last decade, we had netbooks. This decade, we've got Chromebooks. Chromebooks are cheap. They are fast because they have a minimal amount of storage, but it is fast flash storage on board. They boot very quickly, and if all you need is to hop on the internet and get work done, which is what most people do this in age, this is all you need. You don't need a full-fledged computer running Windows anymore. Not that Windows is going anywhere yet, at least not this decade, maybe next. But a lot of people could get by with just a Chromebook now. And so Chromebooks are my next top tech of the decade. The next item also replaced something. So, we used to have handheld cameras. Yes, this is very old school. This was 2 decades ago, technology, replaced by last year's top tech of the decade item, the little pocket cameras. Yes, I still have this thing, but obviously I'm not recording with it anymore. But there's no need for any of those. There's no need even for a camera. Yes, this is an 80s Polaroid. Anyway, we don't need stand cameras or even digital cameras or pocket cams because all of us carry one of these in our pockets pretty much now. That is, smartphones. Android, iOS, or for a short period even Windows, which was a solid platform, but no support, and Microsoft really screwed up because they kept changing things. But that's another story for another day. But smartphones, they replaced cameras, they replaced camcorders, they are voice recorders. Actually, the new Pixel phones that just came out not too long ago, the Pixel 4, and now rolling out to older devices, actually has a recorder app that can not just record, but it can actually take the audio and transcribe it, not just into words, but words that say who said what, which is super impressive and super awesome for taking meeting minutes in real time effectively, or a variety of other scenarios, possibly even legal scenarios. But whether you're iOS or Android, that fight's not on me, but iOS or Android, they have replaced all sorts of things. They have even started replacing game consoles to a degree, because a lot of people, instead of, playing on their Xbox or PlayStation or, Nintendo Wii, now a Switch, they just play mobile games. And I know a lot of people that are perfectly content with playing mobile games on their phone. They don't need a game console. There's other things coming too, such as, in beta right now for Android, Project Xtreme for Microsoft, which lets you play Xbox One games on your phone with nothing more than an Xbox controller that syncs over Bluetooth in your phone. That's it. As long as you have a decent internet connection, these two things, you can play Xbox One games. While we're on the smartphones and all the things they've replaced, they have actually added a few things that we can do. One of the things that's not available in the area that I'm at, unfortunately, but is very popular in certain other areas, is ride-sharing and meal delivery services. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Grab, Grubhub, all sorts of services exist where they didn't before, where you can order food from a place and have somebody deliver it. It not only is a great use of your smartphone to be able to order things, and a great use of someone else's smartphone to receive the order, but it's another form of employment, because that's how some people make a living. Some people I know use it mostly for extra cash on the side besides their main job, but some people do make a living just driving around people on Uber or delivering food with Uber Eats or any of the other services I mentioned. But then the problem becomes, how do you pay? A lot of people don't carry cash anymore. A few do. I still have a couple bills in my wallet. And of course I've got cards, some credit cards, some debit cards, but how are you supposed to pay someone with a credit card? Well, another beautiful thing is, as long as you have a phone, you can get one of these babies for free. And all you have to do is plug it in. And magically, you can now take credit cards on your phone as payment. There are many local businesses, even in this area, that started using the bigger system that uses a tablet, and you mount the tablet on a tablet stand, and you can run a card through that stand, but it is Square. PayPal also has a system that is in existence. I don't recall the name of that because I have yet to see that one actually out in the public and in the wild, but I've seen multiple businesses use Square. Actually, we started having food truck rallies in a town about 10 minutes away from us, and a lot of the vendors used to be cash only, cash only. Well, now they've started using Square with their phones and mobile data, and they can accept credit card payments even at a food truck rally. It's an awesome use of smartphones. But besides Square and PayPal's option, you also have, on iOS, you have Apple Pay, where it generates a secure one-time use credit card, and you tap it to the register or the designated area, and it will automatically pay. There is Google Pay, and there is, specific to Samsung phones, Samsung Pay, and then even some credit cards themselves in them have wireless tap to pay. So the card themselves is a digital tap to pay system using a wireless technology similar to NFC. So smartphones have changed the very way we pay for goods and services. A decade ago, how did you get your music? Some people still probably bought CDs, but a lot of people bought tracks off of the internet. We're loading up their iPods. MP3s, AAC, FLAC, lots of formats, but digital downloads. How'd you get your movies? Probably went to the store or, rented a video through Redbox and picked up the latest flick and watched it on your DVD player or Blu-ray player towards the end of the decade, if you were into that. How'd you get your games? Same way. While you could do a digital download through Steam for PC games, most video game systems at the time still required you to go out to the store and pick up the game. Popped it in your console, and you played it after downloading a few updates. But yeah, everything was still physical media for the most part, except for digital music. So this decade, digital downloads were even more popular, but even more popular than that is streaming media. Spotify, Apple Music, Netflix, all of those things are so popular, even your grandmother knows what most of them are. I myself actually couldn't find a music CD in the house because it was hard enough to find the iPod because I use Spotify myself, and all of my music I stream. I don't actually have a physical copy anywhere. And I know some people, that worries them because if Spotify ever went under, what am I going to do? But it's a risk that I'm willing to take, and so are many other people, because the convenience of being able to stream almost any song on any device anywhere is worth it. So streaming media is a big thing. What about games? Well, as I said, digital downloads. Steam has taken off. Like it or hate it, most people hate it. We have the Epic Games Store as a contender now to Steam that offers digital downloads. We have Origin. Not going to say anything else about that. But we have things like I mentioned before that Microsoft is trying to do, which is Project Xstream, where all you would have to do is sync an Xbox controller to your phone and start streaming Xbox games. Google just launched Stadia. We'll see how long that lasts into the next decade, but the idea is that Google has a server in the cloud that is capable of playing these games at 4K 60 frames per second and streaming to a device like Chromecast or your phone or a Chromebook or basically any Google-ified internet-connected device. So even games have started entering the streaming market, but they have definitely hit the digital download market. Every major console offers games both physically and digital download, and are definitely pushing the digital downloads more than the physical releases. So digital downloads and streaming. Now, digital downloads and streaming and all that is very, very nice. But some people don't like to play content on just their phone. I don't blame them. You can move up to a tablet, a little bit bigger screen. It's still not big enough for most people. Computer, better, but still not big enough. Some people want something bigger. And that is where the next thing comes on my list comes in. And that is what has been running behind me the whole time. 4K smart TVs. Specifically, this one is a Roku TV. But you can also get Chromecast built in, you can get Android built in, and Amazon even sells versions with their version of Android Fire TV built in. 4K gives you a place to experience all the things that I've talked about. You can stream games to some of them, not this one specifically, not yet, maybe someday it'll support Steam streaming or Stadia or something. But this does run Spotify. It runs, you see, Pluto, Vivo, YouTube is what I was actually using to run the fireplace video. But you can stream all of your content, pretty much, for the most part, on a 4K smart TV. 4K smart TVs, then in turn, have led to the next phenomenon of the decade that cable and satellite companies do not like: cord cutting. Between Roku, Fire TV, Android TV, Chromecast, there are many platforms that you can now stream. We have TV replacement services like DirecTV Now, though that's getting pricey, YouTube TV, Sling TV, Pluto, Tubi, if you are okay with just the free stuff, or if you like on-demand content, you can do Hulu, Netflix, or the very recently released, but already very popular, Disney Plus. And if you have your own content that you want to bring to the 21st century, you can use a computer to basically rip it to your hard drive and then serve it up to something like Plex, which will allow all of your movies and music and pictures and everything else you own to play on any smart TV or smart device in your entire house. And if you pay a little bit per month, about $10 a month, outside of your house as well. So cord cutting is definitely a phenomenon, and the cable and satellite companies aren't liking it, but it's a reality that they have to deal with. The very last thing I want to talk about is something that all of you have probably been waiting to hear, but I've purposely left it for last because anyone with a digital assistant device, this is your warning, because the last item is about digital assistants. So Google, Siri, Cortana, Bixby, and even, here it comes, Alexa, sorry if I triggered it, all of them have had a place in shaping this decade. I myself have 2 Google Home Minis, as well as my phone, which I can use to control stuff. But for sake of demo purposes, and this microphone picking it up, I'm just going to use my phone. So I actually have turned the mic off on my Google Home Mini, which is literally sitting probably 5 feet behind where the camera is. And I use it to control things on occasion, but one of the things that I can do is say things, again, trigger warning, hey Google, turn on the tree.
Okay, turning on the tree.
And that's how I turn on and off the Christmas tree. Hey Google, turn off the tree.
Sure, turning off the tree.
Hey Google, play top hits on Living Room Roku.
Sure, showing top hits on the Living Room Roku.
Well, I was aiming for music, but I suppose I should have been a bit more specific, but it is showing me some top hit movies, at least, and top hit applications. So, that's a thing. Let's try again for some music, though. Hey Google, play top pop hits on Living Room Roku. Hey, there it goes.
Sure, showing top pop hits on the Living Room Roku.
So there are all sorts of things that you can control with Google. I have a couple of lights. I have the Christmas tree. I can control the living room TV. It does so much more, though. It can text while I'm driving so that I'm not driving distracted. I love that feature. I've used it, and it is actually mostly accurate. I know you hear of these horror stories of people that have used their voice to text people, and it ends up a complete jumbled mess. And outside of maybe a word or two in an entire conversation, it pretty much understands everything I'm saying and gets it right. So the person on the other end knows where I am or what I'm doing, even if I am in the middle of driving. It is a fantastic feature, and not something that I use as much as some other people, perhaps, but still a very handy thing to have. I know another person that is a friend of mine that the only thing they use it for is to ask it about weather and traffic in the morning. They don't really use it for anything else, but still it's a very valuable asset to them. And for that reason and that reason alone, I feel like it's worth it. Digital assistants are not perfect. They definitely have their moments when they mess up big time. But for certain limited use cases and basic things, they work just fine, and it's easier than having to fumble with the remote or trying to text while you're driving, or, lights, sure enough, they are easy enough to turn on and off for the most part, but the one light that I do have is actually back in a corner above a couch, and so to turn it off, I would actually have to climb on the furniture, climb on my couch, to be able to turn the light on and off. And it's a light we use fairly often to light that corner of the room. So it's just much easier to be able to turn it on and off with a voice command. So that's it. That is my top tech of this decade. Some of it may apply to you, some of it may not apply to you, but those are the things that I've seen that have had the biggest impact in this decade. They weren't necessarily invented, like 4K existed back when. I'm pretty sure Netflix existed a decade ago as well, but it's not nearly as popular as it is in this decade. This decade coined memes about some of these things because they were just so over the top popular. So where do you think will be next decade? I have a couple of predictions. I feel like maybe game streaming will finally be perfected. Right now it's very rough, and it's better to digitally download the game and still play it locally. But if they perfect the art, I can see that becoming a thing. I figured that TVs will probably go up a notch in quality again, so instead of 4K we might be at 8K, possibly even 16K. I'm sort of hoping not, because I'd rather stick with what I've got, and honestly I didn't notice a super jump. I did notice a quality bump from 1080 to 4K, but it wasn't nearly as much as jumping from standard definition to high definition 1080. But we'll see where the future brings us. I feel like also a thing that will be the next decade will probably be 5G for cell phones. Mobile internet data is going to take a turn for the better instead of the worse, and we'll see what cell phone companies do with that. I don't know if they're going to price gouge, probably, or if this will mean cheaper, faster, more data for everyone when all is said and done. But that's for next decade, so I suppose we'll find out if I make another one of these videos 10 years from now. But until then, that's it. Thanks for watching.